have rivers, dogs, and movies. This is the Quest for the Best Director podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Moore, and joining me is a guy who I'm not going to judge anyone on their cleanliness, but let's just say that I've seen bugs crawl out of his hands a couple of times. Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk about these movies. They're so different, but they're so good.
They are so good. Oh, well, don't even get me started because I don't want to go on too much. But speaking of going on, this person, his podcast is goes on like life, like the flow of a river. It's Derek Schwarzinski. Derek, how are you?
Pretty chillin' currently. Looking forward to talking about two movies. I haven't decided which one's the better on yet, so let's go.
Is chilling like a how are you thing? I guess it's okay, sure. I'm gonna go with it. I am also with you on that. I have no idea which one I'm gonna pick. Does anyone really like hard know which one they're gonna pick yet? Caleb, do you? Don't
I
spoil it.
I think I'm leaning, but I wouldn't. It's not a strong
Like you
choice.
can be
Either way.
convinced. You can be convinced.
Oh,
You can
definitely.
get,
I can definitely be convinced.
you get the woman next door, as we like to call in the business.
Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
good movie.
Oh, was it a good movie? Tennis. Derek probably does not agree, but that's okay. This is the Quest for the Best Director podcast. Each week we go over two movies by two different directors, and the director's movie we decide is better. We'll go on. We'll vote at the end, etc., etc. This week it is Louis Buñuel. For the second round, it is Louis Buñuel and his film Un Chien, Andalou versus Jean Renoir's The River. As Caleb said, two very different movies, clocking in for about 2 hours total of screen time this week, which is shorter than both movies we watched last week individually.
Both individual movies.
What?
Yeah, as I'm saying, like individually, both movies were longer than the combined time of these two movies. But I think we might even have more to talk about. We'll see. We're gonna start with the shorter one, Un Chien Andalou. I'm sorry. Now, usually with these kind of things, I like to give like a nice kind of narrative exposition to set the audience straight, but I don't think that's quite appropriate. So my exposition is I'm gonna say, for those of you out there who are listening, all you thousands of millions of listeners out there, just go on YouTube, type in Un Chien Andalou, Andalou, and just watch the movie, because that is the only way to have proper exposition on this film. That being said, what do you guys think of it?
I thought it was very interesting. This is what I was expecting from Buñuel from the beginning when he's like, I'm a surrealist. He was like, this is my thing. And I read a article like, yeah, kind of like, fuck all these normie directors. I'm doing my shit.
Yes, wait. I mean, it's all about experiential cinema, right? Like just like discussing like what actually is cinema. Like, does it have to be like what we've conventionally thought? And Buñuel's not the only one this time doing this. You have like Ziga Vertov, I guess, like most famously, and all those Russian dudes who are doing like their what are they called? Like city films. I don't know. Like the Man with the Movie Camera, stuff like that. Berlin Symphony of the City or whatever, stuff like that. It's all like it's kind of thing where like in these late 20s, what is cinema is like a really an idea that's getting pushed. I think it's like a really kind of important thing to know going into this movie, but also on the whole, experimental. What's word you used at the beginning, Derek? The surrealist side of it. Did you guys see like who else co-directed this movie with him?
I did see there was a co-director, but I did not pick up on who specifically.
It was Salvador
Yes,
Dali,
that's right.
of all people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, huh? Like,
Yeah, for real.
makes it so cool, and this is like such an interesting moment in cinema, right? And like also obviously when it comes, right? This is 1929. What is cinema is going to be a question that's being asked in a very different way by sound coming in, and like this is just a cool little like snapshot of film history. Is Un Chien Andalou. That's we should probably go into like, the actual contents. What's okay? I shouldn't even ask what stands out to you most, because I think we all know what stands out to us most, which is like the first 30 seconds, right? This shot of the eye. What you guys think of this shot?
I thought
I
it
thought the
was
prank.
really cool because he sets it up like that the knife goes to the woman's eye, and as it's going to her eye, it
Mm,
cuts to the moon getting sliced by the cloud, right where the knife's gonna be,
mm.
and so it's both foreshadowing and telling you what's happening. So when he cuts to the eye, it's like, oh shit, I'm about to see this woman get her eye cut, and then it turns out to be the goat getting its eye cut. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's insane like how seamless this feels and like how dynamic of an image it is, or I guess like a series of images it is. And, like it almost comes into question like I guess when it comes to what is cinema, cinema is like a series of images, but usually like it's conventionally a series of images used to like further a
Mm-hmm.
narrative, right? But this is a series of images used to further an image. And I think this like reflexivity of cinema is gonna come back a lot in this film. But Caleb, what do you think of the shot?
I thought it was really cool on the level of like practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Not only just this scene, but like elsewhere in the movie, like with the hand with the ants crawling out, like
Mm-hmm.
the ability to like pull this off, just like able to like even get this shot in the first place, really impressive, and I thought was really cool.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like not only is it cool for like kind of we discussed like this I guess like the image of it, but also yeah, you said like the technical effects of it, and some of this stuff is insane. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
the as it also because obviously one stands out more because that's like the more pertinent image, but
Mm-hmm.
like the hand one I think is even crazier. Like how do they even do that? Still blows
Yeah,
my
right.
mind.
I think the only thing I could think of is that they actually like made like a model hand and then like put a bunch of
Yeah.
ants in it.
Yeah, I guess so. Man, it's nuts. And then also, there's obviously the brilliance of like what Buñuel likes to do in this movie is he will kind of set up an expectation, but then it's like almost completely made fun of. Like, why would you even think that this is where this is going? Where it's like when I saw the guy with like the little like knife, you think, what the heck is he doing? Is he like cut her hair or something, right? And like it's not where he's going at all. But anyways, so we kind of get to this main body of like this filmic text, right? Which is this man, this woman, and all these bizarre things that are going on between them. How did you guys like interpret this film as a whole? Like, what did you think it was saying? Because I think we might all have different interpretations.
I had a quick question. So are it's pretty much only like one man like the whole time. Like, is the guy she walks off on the beach with the at the end the same one as the guy who was chasing her around the room and
There's
whatnot?
there's
I think
three
it's a different
dudes.
one.
The first dude and the second dude are the same dude, but they have different outfits. One's black specifically in or nun clothing, and the second one's white in like a gentleman's clothing. The third one is, I think, a completely different guy, but he's specifically also wearing white.
I see. So that yeah, I did not
Yeah,
pick up on that. That was pretty difficult for me to tell.
And I I think, I don't know. This might be like too much of a reach, but since the first guy's wearing like specifically religious clothing, he's kind of like the place of, I'm gonna just assign him as religion, but also secondary to that is the fact that he's a man wearing nun's clothing.
women's
So
clothes. Yeah,
at least in this time I would interpret that as being a deviant. So I think that might be a comment on religion being like deviant in and of itself. And the fact that the gentleman in white or whatever in proper clothing is the one who saves her from the religion is kind of interesting. That might be like, I don't know, wealthy, like rising above, I don't know, like science rising above religion, I suppose, maybe. So it's also the one that gives like the books or whatever. But that might be too far. And then the third guy is obviously like youth because it's, I don't know, at the end he looks the youngest, and at the end he is the like in spring thing towards the end at least. So I don't know, youth maybe. I don't know what that means. It's kind of like difficult to get a single interpretation from all that, but that's what I felt when I was watching this. But Yeah. All right. We'll be right back. Taking a little break right now. Beep beep.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Cool.
hear you guys
All
too.
right.
Well, that's
That's weird.
irritating.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1, I'll restart. Could you not hear me anymore?
You were talking about we're talking
All
about the
right.
person in white. I was
All
like in
right.
the
So
middle of
middle
thinking about
sentence, the
them.
second dude. Okay. I'll start from there.
No. Uh, no, Dick. I'm saying we were like already in that conversation. I could hear like all of it, like
Oh.
you talking about like what it represents and stuff. I was responding. I started talking. I don't know like when that.
I didn't hear you start talking. I heard Derek like sound like he finished a sentence,
What
but
was
I'm not sure if he was
what was
done
the last
talking.
sentence?
But how like he's like probably like religion. He is like the aristocracy and like that's what's
Yeah.
saving her
Yeah. Okay.
and stuff.
Yeah, like the like he
Okay.
said something about like
Yeah.
science.
Okay.
Like
I'll start from there. I think.
Wait. I was gonna say I can just bring us back now. Like I can just be like, okay, sorry, we had technical difficulties. We're back. I think that would be like the
Well,
best way
it
to
just.
do it. You're
I mean, I've just been kept going the thing, so I could edit it,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, you can just bring us back, and I'll also edit it, I suppose. So I'll say 3, 2, 1, you go. All right, 3, 2, 1.
And we are back. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. Yeah, we're talking about this man in white, what he could represent. I could definitely see aristocracy. I could also see like maybe he's like purity, right? And like what actually saves you from religion is spirituality, like an actual sense of it. And that like how they're almost like dueling is like itself like a contrast, itself a statement.
And I may be remembering this incorrectly, but I believe he's involved with the giving of the books initially, and that's where like the books become the guns and whatnot. So the fact that he gives like books to his opponent to like I guess solve the issue, it I gives me the feel that he's like representing like science or knowledge.
Yeah, the books
And
are
then
given into
like
guns.
obviously the books turning into guns is the usual like knowledge is power idea.
I could see it. I didn't see this movie like a very, very different way. I think this is like definitely an interpretation of it. I think that's probably the like most genuine way to discuss the movie is by just like going through all our
Hmm.
interpretations. You know what I mean? I think that's definitely like legitimate. So then, what'd you think of like
When I
the
saw
end then?
okay, when I and then the third guy is I think when you said purity, I think that's what he represents because obviously he when you look at him, he's the youngest looking one, and also it opens with like in spring, and like spring is youth and love, so it's kind of like the flowering of love and like youth and love and whatnot. So I think he's probably like the purity, or at least maybe romance, and that's like why she's happy at the end. Like maybe the second dude saves her.
She's not
I
happy.
mean,
They
but she's
die,
shown like laughing and having a good time. I don't know if maybe they die happy.
and then they
Just because she dies
die.
doesn't mean she's not happy before she dies.
oh, when
Jack,
did
I
she
gotta be
die?
real.
She dies? I must have
Yeah,
not caught that.
the very last
Yeah.
shot is them dead, almost like on these like pikes.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay, yeah, okay.
She doesn't look too happy in the shot, Jack.
But
I
she's
gotta be
like
real with
following
you.
the dude around. She's like laughing and smiling.
Yeah, she's like
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
embracing.
You guys can't. Okay, I think she at that point she's. But I'm asking. Like, I'm not like saying it's like contradictory. I'm saying, but then what's
Oh,
up with the death?
that's that.
You
I
guys
was gonna
think
say that. Yeah, I think that's like the death of like death of love, death of spring. It's kind of like the end.
see.
Maybe that's I don't
Okay.
know. Maybe that's the death of youth. I don't know. I really had
I came at this
a
from
difficulty actually sparsing out that ending.
yeah. So I'm gonna hit you with my theory, okay? Very, very different. Um, actually, gonna quick side note. I have watched like a bunch of movies in the last 24 hours. I think I've watched
Jeez.
5. Yeah, because like for class, and then sometimes I watch westerns. I'm watching westerns lately while I get work done, which is like not the most productive because I just end up watching the westerns, but it's okay. Um, and one of the movies that I actually have not finished, I guess like this would be the 6th, but like another thing I started listening to, like as I'm walking and stuff, is I've been like re-listening to Zizek's A Perfect Guide to Cinema.
Mhm.
It's on YouTube. It's like nice and convenient. And you know, he talks about this id, ego, and superego, right? And like how it relates to cinema. And I kind of saw this as I'll get to it later, I guess, but I thought it was more important to preface it now than to ruin my momentum. Um, I saw this more, I guess, like as Joshua would put it, as like this perverseness between the man who is supposed to be the viewer and the woman who is supposed to be the I guess like the cinematic image, right? And we start off with her eye being cut, right? And that the eye is like obviously the
Yeah.
camera, right? Like that's like pretty identifiable. So the eye gets sliced. It's like everything is distorted, and like this barrier is in a sense broken, and like weird things will begin to happen, right? Um, we have this man, like, and I'm just gonna kind of go through my notes. So I guess my idea is he is like perversion, right? And he wants these very specific things from her. You know what I mean? She saves him, and that's of course that's how films start. Is she's like this idyllic figure, but she's also an idyllic figure that he's gonna manipulate because the movie it represents people come into a movie wanting it to be something, right? And throwing out, I guess, for another Jajian, does he have his own adverb yet? I don't know. Term. They throw in all this ideology onto the film, right? And they want like a very specific thing
Mhm.
from cinema, you know. Um, and we see this as like there's the one. Well, I assume is it a woman who was like there with
Yeah,
like a
that's a
little
woman.
hand on the street thing?
I think he did that specifically. Maybe it's not to matter
Yeah, no, it's
that
definitely
she's a
specific.
woman or a male.
Like the whole like ambiguity of gender is like a big thing with this entire film. But and we see him as like this desirer, right? And then of course he watches her until she dies. What? No, I'm talking about the guy.
Yeah, we
Oh,
can
can
hear
you
you.
guys hear me?
We're just listening.
Yeah.
Okay. He's looks at her like with this like kind of desirable eye, right? He's like looking through the window. It's like real creepy shot, and we even get the shadow, which I think like the shadow's always kind of like it itself is like it's a cinematic image, right? Because like what is cinema but shadows, right? And we get that like, reflected onto like this blank canvas, like what's it's completely blank except for her, which is like between like the image coming out of the film. So she's like the light. Anyways, so he's like staring at her, and then she ends up dying,
Mhm.
right? And like in this way, like this is his perversion, right? Because as much as you desire the cinematic image, when it comes to narrative, it comes to cinematic image, it also like it must crumble, right? The light must turn off, and that itself is like its own satisfaction, right? When the movie ends, and you get to go up, and the cinematic image is not; it stays, right? Well, it itself was like a level of excitement there. Um, and then of course you get this like really bizarre scene where he's like groping her, and this is like more desire, right? Where you want you ask for so much from cinema. Him groping like, the other woman, obviously. You ask so much from cinema, right? But like you give nothing in return, and it's very clear that like this is his fantasy, right? And he's living out through the image, through the movie, his fantasy, right? Despite what even the movie is, right? He's grabbing her breast and he thinks it's her buttocks, stuff like that, and it's just like so what's the word I'm looking for, guys? It's so gosh, it's so like it's so
Yeah,
self-indulgent,
yeah.
right? You see his face and has like this like weird blood thing. He's like, oh
Mhm.
yes, and then she runs, right? And she she's so scared of him, right? Which is like when he really is no real threat, right? Like he's like literally like carrying these like two giant ass horse piano things. These goofy guys there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we want power over the film because what the film is the film is super ego, right? The film is, whether we like it or not, it's ideological infusion of things that are like being imposed onto us, right? So like the film is like super ego for a lot of people who are trying to like superimpose onto us, right? And but what cinema is, I think what he's saying is it is id trying to conquer the super ego, right? Which is like a fallacy in of itself because the id can never conquer the super ego because the ego is always there. But what cinema is it's this time devoid of ego, right? It's a time of darkness, where the surface just isn't there. And I think this is like further backed up by I think, and then it kind of goes to this thing where he has like the holes in the hands. I think this is this is like really I'm getting up deep into this guy. So feel free to cut me off if you have like, any questions because I don't know if like one long Matthew rant's like
So, what do you
great.
mean by super
But
ego specifically? Is my main question.
like the super ego, right? It's everything that's like being imposed onto you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? By like society, right? It's like it's all societal expectations at your conscience, right? So I guess like when we watch a movie, like our primal instinct of seeing these images, we want that there's I guess this is this thing where we want this kind of this primal emotion from cinema, right? Which is like the id,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in cinema, all of this image is always caked in a narrative, right? And the narrative is inherently super ego because the narratives always come with morals, and morals always come with like societal implications, and it's always society and religion and politics always infused into narrative, right? So putting narrative into film kind of it takes our desire for the id and infuses super ego into it in like this like really like almost perverse way, right? Um, but where we're kind of infusing ideology into like something that should be pure id, that should be pure image, right? And as we can tell from this movie, Buñuel is like all about pure image, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you go into a movie, you want to see yourself as above that. You want your id to conquer. You want to almost. I think everyone sees themselves as the redeemer of cinema, someone who can truly like completely suspend disbelief and be there for a moment. And I don't believe in it, but I do think that the holes in the hands are like a biblical
Yeah,
allegory, right?
stigmata.
Like where Jesus had the
Mm-hmm.
nails in his hands where left the holes, right? I think in that way, like if he's the viewer, he sees himself as some way as like a redeemer, as like a redemptive figure of cinema, and like redemptive for the id, you know. And in this moment, he can overcome,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then we get to the about 3 o'clock in the morning, and like one thing I know Freud was big on after a quick Google search to confirm this was like dreams, right? And oh gosh, I should look this back up. Freud, or let me just go. Ego, super ego, dreams. Um, but according to what is that? Yeah, that party's going hard, huh?
Oops, sorry.
You're good. Um, uh, but what Freud says is during dreams, basically, the the id that's when the id expresses itself, right? And that's when like the according to Freud, the conscious mind is inactive because according to this article, because the id is uncensored with piety, the dream images generated would be shocking and disturbing to the conscious mind, so censor stops. Blah blah blah. Basically, the dreams are the time of the id, and that's where we get this next dialogue card saying, or whatever you call it, saying at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And in the dream, that should be the time of the id. But what cinema does, and this is like the real perversion, is because cinema infuses the superego with the id, right? The superego is never infused into image like it is in cinema, right? Where the two really just go so hand in hand. Now, while your dreams should just be image, right? It should just be image and the time of the id. It is now also the time of the superego because these images you have on the film screen, which should come out in your dreams, are coming out, but they're related to this whole superego that the image is also infused with, right? And this is like some part maybe that I understood the least, to be honest. Um, but I think like there's this irony, right, in that when the guy whips him, right? I basically take him to be the viewer and everything else basically to be cinema, right? We don't like that. We don't like it when cinema judges us. But as we watch the film, right, we actually don't understand what I wrote here. It was so great when I wrote this. I was like on such a roll. I'm like, this is like literally the best theory ever. I guess just like cinema judging us, like I said, cinema judging us is what we want, but we do as we watch it, which is this beautiful contradiction where it's like, I guess we don't want the image when we make film. We want this combination of superego and ego, right? Or superego and id, but like then we want the image to just be the image afterwards, right? We want everything to be normal. Like that is so like inherently silly and like it is infused. We can't just have this time of the id conquering and not take the super ego that comes with it. Like because basically the only way for the id to conquer is if to basically almost surround the super ego, right? Envelop it, right? But enveloping is inherently fusing. So now if it does envelop super ego, then the two are inherently fused. So when you dream and stuff, this fusion comes back to life in like this really like negative way, right? And then we have like the 16 years before, right? Which is like I think actually pure id, right? Because what is 16 years before but like childhood, right? And purity. And in this, like, this is her at her happiest, right? And this is just the image confronting itself.
Oh, that's what the childhood
So,
young dude represents. Ah.
yeah, this is like it, and this is the image now confronting itself, right? And because now he has seen himself as a redeemer of cinema who has took all the ideology from it, right? So now cinema itself can just be id on id. But then cinema can't be id on id because that in itself is so indulgent, right? Like if cinema really is it overindulges itself, right? And the image can't come into contact with another image without one of them commenting on the other, right? And it's dichotomy where inherently one of them will take the place of id and one of them will take the place of superego, right?
Well, I
And
had a
in
quick
this,
question.
yeah,
Doesn't it? You said it says 16 years before, but I thought it said 16 years later because it was in Spanish. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought it was. Isn't it later?
fuck.
Let me see. Oh wait, no, you're right. Sorry, it is 16 years before. Okay, well that completely changes my like interpretation of the film because I was looking at it from the perspective of 16 years later. That's very different.
But yeah, so I think like within this like the image, if the image has to like become infused with ideology, then it itself is kind of this like endless cycle which will only lead to the death of the image, right? And the image just really just can't exist in like this cycle. So you kind of have, and which is why they died. I know it's like this like really like wankery sort of theory, but I was pretty proud of it as I was watching. Although I have no idea what's up like the in spring. Why is it cut to in spring and then they die? I don't quite understand.
Actually think I don't know. I'm pretty sure like spring's like the blooming of life. So blooming of life and then
Yeah.
dying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an irony there.
is I your idea is that it's the image reflecting on the image with like the woman being with the young dude, right? So
Yeah,
that's like the image dying. So that's like film dying.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So it's like
Because
this is the time of the blooming of movies, and then they die.
we know what it is. Is he's redeemed cinema, right, by taking out the superego, right, by taking out all the, by making it purely image, right, and that's what this rest of the film is. Is it's like two young people both in like the light colored clothes on the beach, right, and they together are pure
Mm-hmm.
image, right. But when pure image is together, it itself is indulgent, right? Like any image interaction, it's just going to be indulgent in and of itself, and that leads to like a forced dichotomy, I guess, right? Like where they're just going to keep the image will just keep it becomes too indulgent to the case where one like I think in any dichotomy there has to be an id and a superego, or else the image just fails, right? So in this way, like by indulging itself, I guess it's a statement in and of itself. I don't know if that makes any
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like by having the image constantly indulge the image, you are still trying to do something, right? Like Eisenstein and those guys were all about the montage, or even Vertov and all these guys. They're still trying to accomplish something by like putting images together. So what I think what I was saying almost is even that is like comes with its own sort of narrative and comes with its own superego
The
because
restriction.
of like what society has. Yeah, yeah. The restriction itself is its own philosophy. It is its own kind of politics. So which is its own superego. So in that, it is once again suppressed.
Hmm. I like this take.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a much more developed theory than I had expected.
To
That
be
was
fair to you
very well
guys,
done.
I've seen this movie like 5 times now.
Oh wait, really? Dang, that's
Yeah, because I
impressive.
watched
You
it
watched it all
twice.
back to back?
No, I watched it twice for class, maybe 4 times. I watched it once with Kiana, and then once now, and I watched it 3 times for class though.
Hmm.
Watched it a lot for class. People, film professors, love this movie.
Is that why the man is like restricting her at the beginning? In your theory, is that why she's like restrained on the chair?
Um, I don't know. I thought that was more just like,
Yeah.
is she pushing the chair? Hmm. I don't know. I guess that would make sense for the theory, right? Is like, I go into cinema, you have to like go into the film itself, right? And then I just think it's like it's him cutting into the eye and like going into the film and seeing if you can like change something of the base of the film,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I guess like I don't think the restraining's necessary, but I do think it just like adds the dramatic effect of like you were forcing this onto the film, right? One way or the other. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's like these changes on the film, it's still restricted, it's still bound. It's just bound by like a different set of change of rules.
Hmm.
I don't quite understand the gingerbread thing, but I like it. It's a lot of it though, huh?
Yeah.
I guess ambiguity. I think even that itself is like this ignoring of the
Mm-hmm.
superego, right? Ignoring of societal standards and stuff like that.
I personally thought this movie was like it was great that it was so short. You know, like because
Oh,
personally I
for
don't know
sure.
if it would be like if I could have the patience to like work to try and string together all of these disparate images for like an hour and a half or something like. But it's so like short and sweet that like it doesn't get tiring.
Yeah, I like short films,
I totally agree.
and this is perfectly
Yeah,
suited to the format of it.
100%. Well, Caleb, I have some bad news, buddy, because me and Nick are talking. We actually want to do a wild card round. So we're watching Michael Snow's Wavelength versus Andy Warhol's Empire, and you can just sit and enjoy watching those. We expect you, by the way, to sit down and watch the whole like 10 hours of Empire or whatever it is. but it's Warhol, so you're supposed to enjoy
Excellent. I can't wait.
it. You know, it's 8 hours long. You know, Empire is, Caleb.
Nope.
It is a shot of the Empire State Building.
Oh wait, yeah, I do know what that is. Yeah, I have heard of that. That's pretty funny. So I kind of took the razor across the eye thing as being more of like going into her mind, and then the rest of it all is basically like a dream sequence of her various fears and desires and complexes and whatnot. I've only seen this movie once, and I saw it right before the podcast, so that's my very fresh, hot take right out the oven. But anyways, that's just kind of how I took it.
I think it works. I mean, that's the thing with experimental cinema, right? Is you can kind of take it any way you want, and it's like interpretation itself, which I think is like leads its beauty, like reflection of the human mind. And we can all have like these very like different approaches to this movie. I think there's like an even like one thing we haven't really talked about is like kind of this temporal aspect of it, right? And like the whole like going back and forth between time, what that even means. I think that's it's probably like some theories. I think I read a theory once that kind of like lended itself towards that this is like some statement on time and like what that means. But yeah, do we want to? Okay, so now we have a decision. Let's just go around the table. Let's just keep going until we can't think of something. Cool shots in the film. Caleb, you first.
This isn't a shot, but I just wanted like my important take from this is that I thought this was the most dream-like a dream movie has ever felt. Like there's a lot of movies that do dream sequences, but this one felt the most like an actual dream of just like completely almost like barely tangentially related
Yeah,
scenes, but like still having some sort of like thematic meaning.
I do want to say like your theory about this being some sort of like dream-like thing, and my theory about the Indigo superhero aren't like inherently not related, right? Where it's like the dream is so tied into that, right? And film itself is a dream. Like you can say this is a dream, the whole thing's a dream of hers, and it still be a complete commentary on film, right? Like film
Yeah.
itself is a dream, it is. We only watch it in the dark, and it is
Oh, that's
so
cool.
focused. Yeah, and we don't see ourselves in film, right? So
Dang.
all these can still be true. But anyways, we got good to go around and say cool shots because there's like so many
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
things.
definitely.
Okay, Derek, we should go around.
I'll say my
Quick,
favorite
cool
one
shot.
first. The
Okay.
shot of the Death's Head hawk moth was both the
What?
when after the second guy gets killed by the first guy, and they take their body, it cuts
Mhm.
back. I think it's like I think it says like a week later or something. I don't remember what it says, but it says that, and then it's the woman comes in through the door and she sees on the opposite wall the Death's Head hawk moth, which is also in Silence of the Lambs, and typically represents death. But there's like a few different genuses of the hawk moth, and the first it refers to the name of the first refers to the one of the they both all refer to the Morai, which is the fates in like Greek mythology. The first genus is the one who one of the three that cuts the threads of the life of all beings. The second one is who allots the correct amount of life to each being, and the third refers to the river Styx, so the river of the dead. So I think which is really interesting that he uses the Death's Head hawk moth, because it's like both like cut the thread of all life of all beings, and then like setting their correct amount of life, and then like shipping them to where they are after they're dead. So it's like the whole process in this representing in this one moth, and he uses this like really big, symbol for.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, that's the thing is we're now like even though it's a short movie, there's so much in it, right? Like I'm sure there's so many things that we didn't even pick up on, right? Which is like kind of bad because it's only 20 movies, so you think we should be able to pick up most of it, but there's so much. Um, Another cool shot: the armpit hair turns into like the sea urchin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then and then it turns
that was
into
real
the
fun.
woman in the center of all the people.
Yeah.
So it's like the sea urchin surrounded. It's like I don't know. It keeps inverting because it's like the woman's armpit by itself, and then it becomes like a sea urchin surrounded by sand, and then it inverts to like being surrounded by like similar things. So it's like the absence of similar things to similar things surrounding. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Caleb.
That was actually gonna be mine. It starts off with the hand that's ants, and then to the armpit, and then to the urchin. But I guess to kind of like further that, I just enjoy how it's like these things that are like visually the same, but have basically no meaning in
Mm-hmm.
common, but they still get strung together just by like visual association, which is like kind of how I said before. I think that's exactly how dreams work. Like it just like takes basically like visual data and like tries to find patterns out of it, even if there's no like grander meaning. I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think it's like a really exactly. Yeah, like it's just it is, and that's the thing. And once again, I think that's like Fortnite is the edge, right? Because it's just literally just like all this image, right? And like tries to kind of like you said, piece together like as well as it can, but it's really just like an image dump. Derek, cool shot.
The shot of them carrying the dead second guy out of the building and then like into the field, really cool. It's like I actually when you said dreamlike, that's the first thing I thought of when it was like actually dreamlike for me. I was like, this actually feels like a straight dream to me. How it's like set up, like almost like perfectly like unrelated, but the motion of it keeps going. I don't know. That's like exactly how my dreams work.
Oh, it's my turn for a cool shot. I really like the effect of him shoot when he shoots
Oh
himself,
yeah.
right? Which, by the way, I think that's it destroying super ego, right? Where the super ego is all like dressed up nicely and stuff, and like it's very posh, and it's all not. But it's like the effect on it, and like his also both of these actors, like the main two,
Mhm.
are so good.
Especially for like I don't know, it feels like a very one-off thing, so I didn't expect them to be like amazing. And I looked up this woman, and she like kills herself by self-immolation in like a few years after this. Yeah, so
Jesus
she's hardcore.
Christ. I'm not gonna say that. It's probably not the uh
Strong
you
believer.
know the right message. Sure, but yeah, she's definitely goes all out. Caleb, any more cool images?
Um, I guess the interspersed shots of like I don't know if it's like a goat or a cow or whatever with its eye cut out just because of the sort of like callback to like her getting her eye cut and how it kind of like reminds us of that crazy shit that like started off all of the shenanigans.
Yeah, it does. I think that's like really strong too. I also really like. Is it like when her armpit hair grows
Yeah,
on his face?
yeah. It grows over. At first, he like loses it, and then it grows over his face. It's so intense. That's directly after seeing the moth, and I don't know. This might be like too much of a stretch, but this is like semi-related because Silence of the Lambs also uses the moth as like a cover, and on the cover is a moth covering the woman's I can't remember Sterling's mouth. Um, so it's like the moth in this is like semi in like a surrealist way connected to like covering the dude's mouth because it was just shown, and it's like also they use that for the Silence of the Lambs cover. I just thought it was cool when I saw that. That was like the first thing I thought about.
Anyone have anything else, or we could go onto the river?
I want to talk about the river.
I do too, because I take a lot of notes in this movie. Like 2.5 pages. I'm taking notes like a madman lately. But let's talk about the river. John Renoir, the river. It's about this girl Harriet who lives with her. She's a English woman or English girl. She's like, what do you think, like 16 years old?
She looks. She's
Yeah,
pretty
probably
young. I
thereabouts.
think she's like maybe 50.
Well, what's her face? Valerie's
Oh yeah,
17.
she looks like at least like 3 or 4 years younger than Valerie.
Sure. But I think they're close enough. Maybe. I think she's like 14, 15. I mean, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say if she's younger. She's
Yeah.
like a late bloomer. But it's about this girl Harriet who lives with her family in India. They run like a factory for thing I should have written down, but it's whatever makes doormats. That's all I
It's
remember.
Yeah, you.
It's jute.
Jute.
Jute. That's right. Just know it makes doormats. Um, and basically she's kind of like this is like really idyllic, very I guess we'll talk about this later, but like very like Western Eastern hybrid lifestyle. Big family, lots of sisters, one brother, one little most all of them younger. And basically this man, Captain John comes to visit his one of their neighbors. He's one of their neighbors' relatives, and her friend Valerie both fall in love with him.
But they're sisters.
Valerie's and
No, they're not.
Harriet are sisters. Yes. I'm like
They're
almost
not.
110%.
I am 1,000% sure they're not sisters. They say they said she's like a friend of the family, but she's not. They're not sisters.
I'm like almost 100%. I'll look. Yeah.
You guys want? I can.
Yeah.
I can pull it up. I'm looking as we speak, but I'll keep talking about the thing. Um. Off. But yeah, so then this guy comes, and basically they kind of compete after him, but it's not really a contest because Valerie is older and, frankly, like more attractive, more developed as a human being, and the guy likes her. And oh, by the way, important to Captain John, he was in the war and he was crippled by during the war, and they both like him, and then he basically obviously he ends up choosing neither of them because he's like way older than both of them and it'd be really super weird. But he kind of chooses Valerie for a bit, and then what ends up happening is at the end, her brother, what is his name? It's Odie. Something with it. It rhymes with. I don't remember if it rhymes with Bodie.
I thought it
Bogey.
was. Yeah.
Bogey. Bogey.
49 or 9
Bogey
bogey
dies. Bogey dies, and everyone's super duper sad, and then Captain John leaves. Yeah. And that's the movie. So what do you guys think of it?
It was beautiful. The colors, so good. Like, every shot was like gorgeous. Like I felt like I was constantly being stimulated and had something gorgeous to look at because like every shot was like a banger shot basically.
I
And then
totally agree.
like on top of that, they have this like basically really cool theme about like I don't know, like 'cause it's kind of like a love story, but like it doesn't like hard commit to the love story. You know what I mean? Like it's not like too focused in because we also have basically this like really like almost I guess you could say like in passing, but like while this love story is going on, we're basically just being shown like a ton of stuff about like Hindu culture, I guess you could say, and like their way of life. And I don't know, it's like super beautiful how it's done.
Definitely.
It is so beautiful. I really hate to like ruin the moments from here, but I just wanted to say, I just wanted to give you guys a little quote from the movie. Okay. I'm waiting because it's being stupid. I can be stupid. And then there was Valerie, but she wasn't one of us. Her father owned the jute press. She'd been to school in England. They were rich.
Ah.
She was the only child and came every day to play with us.
Well, thank
They're
you
not siblings.
for
You're
throwing that
welcome.
up.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyways, so I think it's 100% true, Caleb, and I think it is a romance. Okay, here's gonna make claim here. A bit of a nuanced one. It is a romance from all of the obviously the three main characters are Captain John, Valerie, and Harriet.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
But see, I would disagree there because like I wrote this down specifically. Every character feels like a main character. Like Harriet feels like a main character. Captain John feels like a main character, and then also Melanie. I think was it Melanie or
Melanie.
Melody? I couldn't tell.
No, it's Melanie.
Melanie also felt like a main character, and like every character was like really well fleshed out. So good. And, like every character has interaction with every other character. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I do think like our main story of the romance follows Valerie, Harriet, and Captain John with Melanie as an accessory, right? I was gonna say, I think well, really, even from Melanie's perspective too, for all four of them, it is a love story, right?
oh well, yeah, it's
Um,
like this is all a love story, but it's not
no,
about
no,
like
no, no,
one love.
hear me out. It is from all four perspectives, it is traditional romance, right? But for our true main character, which is Harriet in present day of the
Yes.
film, narrator
Yes.
Harriet, this is not a love story,
Exactly.
right? This is a completely different tale. So I think if we don't have this narrative thing, it's literally told from like in real time. This would 1,000% be a
Mhm.
romance, right? But it's not. I think that's really important to know, Caleb.
But it still is a romance though, because she specifically sets it up as like this is the story of my
Yeah,
first
that's
love.
exactly it though. When you're like, I don't know, 50, looking back on your life, you're not gonna be like, oh, this was a romantic tale. This is like me being a dumb kid. This is me growing up.
Well, yeah, sure, it's definitely about growing up, but it's like I don't like she literally says like this is a story about my first love. So to say it's not a love story, it's a little bit of an
I mean,
understatement, I guess.
I guess so, but like I think there's other things we can witness, like even from like a filmic perspective, right? Like if you look at the scene where Valerie and Captain John kissed, right? That is shot and like done so anticlimactically, right?
Really, yeah. Well, that's the point too, right? It's supposed to be anticlimactic. Like it literally like
Sure,
subverts
but
the expectation because she afterwards she's like, well, now it's not a fantasy anymore. Now it's become reality, and I didn't want it to be real, which is like in its own way like subverting the idea of like a romance. So
for and that is not only true for Valerie and Captain John, but even for them, it's a climactic moment, right? Because it's them realizing this, right? But it's
yeah,
played down for us, and for Harriet and Melanie looking on, it's certainly a climactic moment, right? Because it's finale of the romance, right? Somebody
yeah,
has won. In the romance movie, this is the big moment, right? This is where we get our montage put onto some like sad ass like Adele song where it's just like Harriet walking through the streets of India, just all sad and stuff. But it's not. It's not quite like that because that that current emotion isn't important. It's her former emotion, right? Or it's her present emotion, right?
maybe what we could
The yeah,
I was just saying, maybe what we could say about this is that this is a love story, but it's not a genre love story. Am I right?
yeah. I would say it's a love story. It's a story about love, but it is not a romance.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
And but yeah, I think the point is like the emotions we feel in this movie are not of any of the characters in the narrative. It is of Harriet, the narrator.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I agree with
That is,
that.
even in the saddest moments, even when Bogey fucking dies, it's played for like smiles. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly. Like you don't feel that sad about it because of the way it's presented, and like because it kind of ties into this whole like circle of life thing we've been getting at throughout the whole movie, and also it was like foreshadowed a lot, so you're not really surprised.
Yeah, sure. But well, yeah, exactly. I think that's like a powerful part of it. And also, there's this whole thing where like, and stylistically, right? Like, there's all this beautiful music going on while it's happening. Right? Music, like, literally the entire movie is gonna be like some sort of music in the background, no matter how subtle. I even wrote in all caps. This movie is full of music
Yeah.
and also beautiful scenery. I don't know if it's a close up the entire film. I could be wrong. At
Um,
least during the Bogey death
during
scenes, I
I was
can.
gonna say during the I know for sure certain when Harriet and Captain John are in the boat, or I think it's a boat, probably a boat. It closes up on his face and her face, her looking directly at his face. You get it like a little bit of that. That's probably the only close.
That's the closest we get, but it's not even then. It's
Yeah,
not really a close up. I'm
yeah,
looking at it right now, and it's like still you can see like chest up and stuff. There's like tons of space on the side, and it's also weird to think of
yeah.
like a close up. It's not really a close up, right? Like the most we get is like a close medium shot, right? Because we're not supposed to have that emotion superimposed onto us.
Mhm.
You know, it's because the emotion of these characters isn't really important. Um, another like, and I think we talked with Passenger last week, right? And I think one thing we were just with the Passengers, but I don't want to do here, is thinking about this as like a piece of world cinema, right? This film's like super unique in that sort of context as well, where this is an American film, or is it is it British or American? Do we know?
American.
I think
It's
it's
American.
British.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
like
Okay, I
the
can.
MGL dude, or I think production.
Oh, maybe French. No, how could it be French? Why would it be in English? I can check. The River Production Company. I think it's American too. That's what.
I watched a documentary specifically. He tried to get it produced by American company, and he got it like American dude, I think, produced it because he couldn't get production.
Okay. Yeah, Kenneth McEldown, and he also helped produce it. So, yeah, so it's like an American film written by, um, written and directed by a Frenchman, right? And also a British author, is one who wrote the source material. Oh, and also it's gonna take place in India. There's gonna be like a ton of Indian actors in it, right? Not a ton, but a decent amount. But also American actors, or British actors, which I think is actually really important. We'll get to that in a sec. And this is a piece of global cinema. I think there's so many comments about India and just about Western versus Eastern, right? Especially the dichotomy between Melanie and the other two
Yes,
girls,
I was gonna
right?
mention that.
And even between Harriet and Valerie, right? Where Valerie is so Western, and I think even though Melanie herself is torn, right? I think kind of her character. I think Harriet is also torn in some ways, and you can see the infusion in some of her instincts as well. But talk about Derek.
Well, I was specifically going to mention the colors. Because there's a very interesting thing going on there with like Harriet only wearing blue. And like the like people who are Indian who work on the like I guess it's the villa also only wear blue. So
Yeah.
like Nan only wears like specifically a blue gray, and at the beginning you see Natalie or Melanie wearing the exact same color of blue. And after the dance with John, she begins wearing very vibrant colors, like very vibrant yellows, and she, I'm gonna say, she begins with like a red, but because I don't have my notes up at the moment, but yeah, she starts with a very vibrant color immediately afterwards. And you see like every other like Indian person not at the villa working there with also very vibrant colors. So I think that's very
I think that way, Harriet
yeah,
or is it Melanie
Melanie.
blue or
So
Harriet
you see like Melanie
Harriet, right?
wearing very vibrant colors, like always, just like immediately after the dance with John.
I
So
see.
I think that's her like going away or at least accepting her Indian side, because she just came
Mhm.
from America where she was like told that that was dumb. You shouldn't be like experiencing
Yeah.
those things.
And then Harriet, you're saying is also because you said all the workers are in blue as well, so Harriet in that way has
Yes, I
like
was about to
Indian
say
side
that.
to her
Yeah,
as well. Is that
because
what you're saying?
she's like almost on the edge of between like the British and the Indian people who work there. So she's like very like close to them, and like she's interacted with those people.
And it really celebrates India. You know what I mean? It's a really beautiful way. We get to learn about all this tradition. We get to learn about Diwali. We get to learn about like the gods Krishna. And we also
Yeah,
get a Vishnu reference in
yeah,
there.
we
I
do.
can't remember.
And Krishna, of course.
Also, and I think we also get a reference to the Buddha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can make
Yeah,
that up.
because the tree that the cobra was in was the same tree as the one he sat under. Like this movie
All
almost
the
at some shots seems to me like some sort of National Geographic documentary, where we get these like really wide, long panning shots
mhm.
of like just like people like working.
Beautiful, yeah, but also like
Yeah,
these beautiful, yeah, images, right?
yeah, like living and working along the river, and then that whole sequence where she talks about the steps that lead down to the water. Like, oh my god, that is so beautiful. And like you mentioned, like we just get to experience so much of Indian culture that like I mean, like I said, it kind of feels like a documentary, but then it also has all these like really, it's like rooted in like a narrative too, so it like really kind
It's
of hits
interesting you
both
say
levels.
documentary. This might be cheating, but one of the things I learned about this film is that he used some documentary shots of India. Yeah, and
Oh, really?
so he like
Wow.
interweaved these documentary shots with his film, and he like uh, I think very intentionally did one of that like kind of documentary feel.
Yeah, it certainly came across, and I like what you mentioned about like how these characters sort of like are like a hybrid or synthesis between like Indian culture and Western culture, because you can see that like especially like the young girl Victoria, how she's always just like spouting these like really
Yeah.
like spiritual and like very like Eastern philosophy type things. Like when she's
Like
talking
how the
about like
rabbits can be reborn again and again.
yeah, exactly, like about this like cycle of like rebirth and stuff like that, and like it's like they never like I didn't feel like it was like hitting it on the head with it, like they never like
Mhm.
wow, that's very much like Eastern philosophy or something, like they just kind of like she just says it and then you move on, but like you can sort of like infer from that little moment like what kind of cultural synthesis is going on here, and it's like
Yeah,
really
because
cool.
that's the beauty of it, right? It's something that you're hit over the head with. It's something that they are hit over the head with, right? It's something that they grew up in. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
And one more thing on the whole, like, seeming like a National Geographic thing. Okay, so when I was looking at this film, I saw that on Rotten Tomatoes it had 91%, right, by the critics. And I thought, wow. So that means that 10% of people like so this movie is explicitly bad because how Rotten Tomatoes works, right? It's like
Yeah,
not like an average rating. It's like, is it good or is it bad? So I went and there wasn't that many reviews of it, not surprisingly. There was two that basically said it was bad. Um, and one of them said, "Here, India seemed to be portrayed as if in a 1950s travelogue." And I can't read the full review because this person was not relevant enough in life to have their work archived. But that's literally the point. Is yes, that seemed like a 1950s travelogue, and that is so much more genuine than like this white ass John Renoir. Like I understand it's like oh man, how would set a movie in India and all this stuff, and then like not make the main character Indian. But I feel like that's so much more genuine to like his experience, like to the experience than like having an Indian person, and then you have to do this whole like here's the truth behind India. It comes with its goods and it comes with its
yeah,
bads,
because
and
Yeah, yeah.
or
obviously,
even like
that's right.
even and even just assuming that like he knows what India is like for an Indian person, right? It's just
Hmm.
so
Yeah, because
wrong to me.
obviously he's not gonna
Okay.
be able to have like an accurate portrayal unless he like lets like an actual Indian
Mhm.
person do the work for him. So why even try that? That's just gonna be a mediocre view anyway. So might as well do the only view that he
Yeah,
can as well as he can.
and in itself, I think there's something special to that view, right? Which is like the thing. It's not like it's he's settling. You know what I mean? Like I think it's itself like a very legitimate view. Caleb.
I was just gonna mention like how they almost explicitly like let you know that that's like not the kind of like shitty like stereotypical view that you're gonna get when like the like typical like American guy comes and he's like, "Where's the bed of nails? Where's the snake charmer?" and all this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Nah, they don't really like have that here." Like they very much, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like it's basically like almost explicitly tells you like this isn't gonna be like some Tiger of Eshnapur tier like misrepresentation of a culture.
And the other thing, I think it's like one of the things that really stands out, right? And like another thing is like when the father talks to like the workers, it's not subtitled. You know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love stuff like that because it's not appropriating India for us. It's just it is what it is,
Hmm.
and we're just gonna get through these characters.
Yep.
There's some funny dialogue in this movie, like not Nan's the bread. Her name's what's her name?
And
Is it
I don't know.
Yeah, I
Nan?
think
Go for Nan.
Nan? Okay. She's a line which is like just like it's so weird the dialogue in this movie where like they're talking about like inviting Captain John to the thing, and she's like to ask a stranger in April it's unlucky, but this isn't April. And
Yeah, that
like
was a little weird too.
it cracked me up so much. I was like, yeah, it is in April. Good point.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out too. The only thing I can think of is that like maybe they mentioned that it was like the end of April or like about to be April or something, or like it was right on the edge to where that would be relevant. But that's like the
I
only
think it was a funny
circumstance.
line. I think it was just a funny line. There's a bunch of like wacky lines being thrown in there.
Yeah. But speaking of lines, there was some wacky lines, but there was also some really great quotes. So
Oh
when that
my
section of the
gosh.
podcast comes around, get ready.
Yeah, we might have to roundtable that one too. Like once we do our best quote votes, because I have so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now we haven't actually jumped back to the narrative too much, or so do we want to? Okay, let's keep staying on track of like this is like this global piece. So we have these three girls, right, and they're all kind of. I mean, I think it's fair to say Captain John is Americana, right?
Yeah.
And each of these girls are kind of like a different equation of hybrid for between I guess European and Indian ideals. I think let's start with Valerie, who is by far the most Western of them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's like looks wise, like she's like a more developed body, longer hair. The cigarettes, she's like smokes cigarettes, like the European
Very
girl. I'm
odd.
doing like a
Hold on,
really good
this
mining.
I want to bring up that her hair looks exactly like the hair from like a pre-Raphaelite painting or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely has like a Middle Ages European vibe, like super West.
I was gonna say,
Here.
I was probably gonna mention her colors again, because I thought it was very interesting. Because there's kind of some crossover with Melanie, in that Valerie goes from brown at the very beginning to red during the kiss to green at the end, and Melanie starts with blue green, and right after the dancing with John is green, like Valerie is at the end. So and then it goes purple to red to yellow. So there's some very similar. I think it might be the colors might also be related to like personality type. So you might be like or like moods.
Oh, for sure.
So there's like
Yeah. I think moods. Yeah, I think
because
I was thinking moods as
I was
well.
gonna say that
But
because
continue.
it's also the vibrancy in the red. Like she goes from like very like dull red to very bright red when she during the kiss, and like Harriet also does that. She goes from like powder blue to royal blue during like the drowning to light blue at the end, like very royal blue. So I think Valerie and like Natalie, Melanie have like very similar, like maybe personality types of what he's trying to say. Maybe not.
Renoir is truly just a master of color. That is incredible. Like I didn't catch that, but it's amazing that both you caught that and that Renoir did that. Like that is so cool, so damn cool.
And just in general, like I feel like we're only even just like touching the surface, right? I'm sure there's with color alone, you could write a whole essay about this
Oh,
film,
definitely.
right? There's so much color in the film, and it's so much to look at. Um, but yeah, Valerie, I think she's supposed to represent the American, right? But I think what's important to know is that even like the most American, like I think there's this thing like if you're a Westerner, you need to get acclimated to like the Eastern ways if you're if you're going to be living there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, I think Valley shows that there's still like a super valuable experience to be gained from just being there, and that itself is almost more important than like trying to spend your 2 weeks, but living the real life, doing the tradition stuff is like so much less important than just being there and like partaking in it, and that itself is like a valuable life experience. What do you guys think of Valerie's arc? Let's kind of transition to that.
I kind of liked her whole like phenomenon. We talked about it earlier, but like how like the kiss becomes real from fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and like how that's sort of like it's like a metaphor for like this whole like growing up thing that this show is about in general with like what starts off as fantasy becomes reality and it's never as good as you think, but that's just kind of how it be.
I think my favorite line was, "I didn't want to change, but it changed. I didn't want it to leave, but it's gone."
Yep.
So
Oh
like
man.
she didn't want to change in the first place. But once she did, she didn't want it to leave either. And now she's in adulthood, right?
Yep.
Which is like that's just kind of what you're left with. Um, okay, let's talk about I guess our main character, like our mainest character. I should say main because Caleb's already argued where that's not exactly like truthful or like a genuine interpretation. But what do you guys think of Harriet's character and her arc and what she's supposed to kind of represent in this cultural context?
It's interesting what she represents. I don't know what her arc specifically is, other than like the. I think actually, never mind. I take that back. I know what it is. Isn't it? I feel like it's kind of interesting because it's like both the like dual usual like Western like puberty and like obviously she has very close relationship with like Indian culture, so it's very interesting.
Hmm. I definitely agree. I love, by the way, her story when she writes that story about like the
Oh yeah, yeah,
is
it
it
is.
Krishna?
I
Yeah.
I love that. That was really interesting. To that's like such an interesting way to develop that character, like any character at all, but
Mhm.
specifically for her. That's like how she's trying to like connect with this guy she likes. It's so interesting.
And I think it also brings up this like really interesting point of, and we'll kind of get this more with Melanie, but like, what does romance look like, Eastern versus Western, and what is beauty? I think is like another really pertinent question, right? Especially specifically the latter. I think is actually the more interesting one, right? Where it's like, why are we beautiful? What is the point of
Hmm.
that, right? Is it for men? Like, maybe her mom slightly problematically suggests. Is it for one man? Is it for society? And I think one thing they kind of point out is that in Eastern society, you just need to be beautiful for one man, right? But in the West, beauty is itself because in Eastern society, having a rich man means that you have high
Hmm.
status, right? But in Western society, being beautiful is itself a status symbol, right? So you need as many people to recognize your beauty as possible, so you can have status. And I think Melanie is kind of written by wanting others to see her as beautiful. I don't know how we got to Melanie, but I did. Sorry, Harriet's story reminded me, right? Because it's all about how this woman's beautiful
Hmm.
for just this one
Yeah.
man, etc. How I think she even says like the man, she became a goddess because she got with him, right? All
Yeah,
this
that's
stuff.
interesting. I didn't pick up on that
Um,
specifically.
and I think with Melanie, she's like rid by this guilt of she kind of has this Western desire for many to see her as beautiful, but she hates that about herself, right? And it's not like this super heavy hate where we're supposed to sympathize because like we recognize that that's just as silly like a child thing as
Hmm.
anything, right? But I think it's still like really important and cool to note that like they're not just completely dissing the Western view of beauty, right? It's like a more balanced look than maybe you would believe upon like a initial viewing.
I like that take.
Thoughts on Harriet or beauty? I think beauty is like
I
another important thing.
thought the one kind of last interesting thing I picked up on is they specifically pointed out, but that like the jute that they're creating looks exactly like blonde hair, which is obviously
Mm-hmm.
like a Western thing. And so like I don't know, kind of like tying in with what you said about like the I guess this blonde hair, but I guess see, I'm not really sure how like my final interpretation of this is, but I guess like in their factory they take it from like this beautiful blonde hair looking thing and making it into something practical like a doormat. Like you wipe your feet on, I guess. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting little thing. I'm not sure what it's saying, but there's probably something there.
Yeah, and like how Captain John wasn't interested in it, right?
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe that's
And
why
that's
he's
interesting too.
into Melanie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
well, Captain John's a weirdo, dude. That guy. I
He's a
understand
good
he was gonna
character though. I
warn
like
us.
him.
He is. I do like him, but just I understand he's gonna warn us stuff, but man. Also, okay. Can we, we're all on Captain John and Melanie. I love both of those characters, but like neither of them are super strong actors. This is definitely the closest we're gonna get to like French American
Oh
neorealism here,
yeah.
right? Where neither of them are super strong actors. It's kind of fine when they're because like the characters aren't supposed to be portraying like super strong emotions anyway, so it's like not a big deal when they're like scenes with other characters. But those scenes where it's just them, Like, come on, please. Like, the dialogue here is great,
Oh
but
yeah,
like,
it's
this is a bit rough to
what's really cool. I
watch.
don't know. It's kind of interesting that that they're like bad actors because like in the moments where you see like real pain because like the Captain John really did not have a leg, so the scenes where he like really like has to face that are very real and like aren't like very like bad. Like
Oh,
those are
jeez.
like when he's like putting himself onto the bed and you see him like have to like hold his leg up to get there and like
Mhm.
his expressions are like so real. And like the scene where he like falls because he tries to play like I think cricket with Valerie and like she throws it too hard or something and he like falls and just like the scream and like all the emotions and like the humiliation was like so real in that scene that it was like when he's like acting poorly the like contrast was just like made it even like stronger.
Yeah. Well, how do they do that then?
I think he like
Him
actually
falling scene.
fell.
Jesus Christ, that actually must have been like so fucking
Yeah,
painful.
it's like
Jeez
I don't know.
Louise.
And then like obviously the Melanie's actor is part Indian, part like English. So those are like real struggles that she's had
Yeah.
to face.
Also, some of these people we use the word actor. You know, I think like Harriet and Melanie together have been in like 4 movies or 3 movies total, and one of them is
Yeah.
The River. So they've each been in one movie besides that. Like, yeah, but yeah, and I think that is cool. I think like some of that is like this like language barrier, right? Which she does convey really well. But also, can I say, even though like I'm from Harriet only being in one thing besides The River, Harriet is like one of the most inspired casting choices I've seen in any movie ever. I'm not even gonna like say like she is like
Yeah.
such a perfect fit for this
Yep, I
character.
agree.
Like just the look, the way she talks, like when she shrieks at the Bodie's bogey. I keep thinking of The Wire. 'Cause I put Rip Bogey and I thought about Rip
Or
Bodie and the
Bodhi.
whole thing. Oh, sorry, spoilers by the way. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, like when she shrieks at like hit Bogey's friend, you know, like while he's like running away. Like her shriek is just so perfect. Like that is what this character would sound like in this moment. But I think it's just like her yelling. Oh, it's so amazing. She's a she has a great performance, especially for someone who's
Mhm.
so young. I assume.
I actually
Amazing.
kind of want to disagree with something that you said earlier, where you thought that, like it was, well, I guess I'm not really disagreeing, but just kind of pointing out that like the scene where you're talking about Captain John and Melanie like together, like
Mhm.
in my opinion, the acting really didn't bother me there that much, but that's kind of the scene when I realized like what I mentioned before that like all of these characters are getting to interact with like every other character, and so we're getting like a
Mhm.
much more three-dimensional picture of that because I think like in a much lesser movie we would never see Captain John and Melanie interact alone together because there's no reason, right? Like there's outside of like developing them as characters, like it doesn't really advance the narrative that much. But like because we get that scene, it's like it does wonders for like our understanding of both characters.
And like of culture, right? Like each of these is just like a slightly different take on culture when two characters collide, right? But it's not like a clash; it's just like a bond, a fusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And even like we're still talking about like, basically like between our 4 main characters, but even like Mr. John will interact with like or interact with like Harriet, or when Harriet's dad interact with Captain John, right? Stuff like that. Like we have no business seeing, but we do. I just love that. Also, I love all the little kids in this movie. By the way. They're all amazing.
Oh yeah.
Victoria, Bogey, they're all so adorable and so great. Especially Victoria. She's so and Bogey too. Though when he's like, I touched it once, and he holds up his little finger. Oh my gosh, got me. I love the
Yeah, and like
movie.
kind of just like watching like him interact with like his Indian friend is also just so cool to like see like
Yeah,
it's like cultural synthesis. Very interesting.
but because for children, what the movie claims for children, that isn't even it's not even a thing. You know what I mean? Like they just like exploring and love being and love living life. Oh, great. I have like a billion quotes written down for this movie, by the way.
Do you want to do quotes?
Let's talk about. Do we like? Are we done talking about Melanie? By the way, 'Cause, like we kind of like
Um,
touched on her, but also did.
it's really hard to. I don't know where to start.
Well, I have a quote, Derek. Maybe because we're here. Harriet says of Melanie, "For an Indian girl knows better the seriousness of love." Right. And at the time, this is he was mostly set up this next quote, which is suddenly we're running away from childhood towards love, and like also just like explaining like why Melanie wasn't interested. But I think it's like also these deep levels of irony here, right? Because Melanie, it's the first day Melanie does have some sort of attraction to Captain
Mhm.
Jack, right? Kevin John, sorry. We're luckily not doing a movie podcast for Pirates of the Caribbean. That'd be an issue. But
That's the next podcast.
yeah, it's the next one. It's should we we're gonna do actors now, and it's just gonna be like Johnny Depp versus like Chris Pratt. But yeah, is that fair to say that Melanie's a Christian Captain John?
I think so. I think that's part of the why she like dislikes herself, because like, I think
Yeah.
ultimately she doesn't like the part that is attracted to the kind of man that Captain John is.
Why do you think we aren't told about why Melanie dislikes herself explicitly? Because she's always so
Because you gotta
ambiguous.
imply it. It's the same thing with like all of the stuff that I mentioned with like Victoria, and then also with like Bogey stuff. It's like it doesn't have to spell everything out for you. You can kind of just like take it from the implication, and it becomes like
Mhm.
stronger that way.
I agree. That's
But things we get it with Harriet and Valerie, right? I think it might be even more nuanced than that. I think because she is an Eastern character, I think sh it wouldn't. I don't think she's ever really said it out loud. You know what I mean? Like in this very real way. I think like it's not to her character to draw attention to like her
mhm.
being upset, right? That's just like not important in their culture. I think there's like also a bit of that going on too. But I do agree that it like definitely like it gets you more. It like adds intrigue, which like adds potency.
Well, like I think the cool thing about that whole romance is how much it like isn't gone into, which I think is probably like maybe this is a reach, but Harriet like didn't ever see it like when she was that young. Like she probably just saw herself competing with what's her
Valerie.
name?
Valerie.
Valerie. That's right. I want to say so she probably just saw herself competing with Valerie and like
She's competing with Victoria. That'd be a
yeah.
whole different movie.
And like Melanie is like so much older that like it's like she wasn't even on her radar or something like that, which is why it's emphasized and like why we never really get that much into it, but we get just enough as an audience to like kind of figure it out for our own.
I think it's a good point. I think that's what I was saying. I think one thing we also talk about before we go to quotes and stuff, do our quote roundtable, is there's obviously this theme of childhood, right? We've like kind of mentioned it a lot, but we haven't really touched on it. How would you guys feel childhood was portrayed in this movie?
It's like idyllic and innocent and beautiful and perfect, and basically it's nothing but good
Yeah,
qualities.
it's because what's his name? John, the John Dad John, not the Captain John.
Mr. John. I think he's just called
Um,
Mr. John.
he even has the quote of like the world is for children. They're the ones who are like playing in the trees and with the ants and whatnot. So I think that line I think sums it up entirely. I don't have the exact line, but I imagine probably one of y'all wrote it down.
Yeah, I a couple of them. We should celebrate a child died a child, which I thought was a hot take on Mr. John's part. He also says the world is for children, the real world, which I think is like really interesting as like a global cinema phenomenon, right? Because like, I mean, obviously this is right off the heels of World War II, right? So like, what does adulthood even represent now, and innocence, and this kind of question comes into play. But that's a whole other discussion. And then what I think was most interesting is he goes, "If the world could be made of children," and it cuts off and just goes to the next scene.
Dude, I wanna mention that because that is the only time I think I've ever seen a movie like cut off somebody mid sentence like that. You know?
Yeah, I had like something go wrong. I literally like rewinded my thing because I was like, No, but that's 100% intentional. And why do you think they did that, Caleb? Do you have any theories?
I guess maybe it's just that the dad was about to start like waxing poetic or something, and it kind of like you can figure out what he's gonna say from here now. You know, like if the
I
world
disagree.
was if the world was made of children, da 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 da.
You think so, though? I feel like.
Because like you
I
can
mean,
kind of like you kind of fill it in for your head, fill it in on your own, right? Because like you can pretty much just insert like a dot dot dot
I'm
there.
sorry.
Like the statement stays the same. Like if the world is made of children, and then you just like wistfully stare at the sunset and extend the shot for like 10 seconds. Like its meaning stays the same.
Yeah.
Sure, but they do something, right? And he goes, if the world could be children, and it cuts to Harriet upset over Bogey's death. Keep wanting to say Bodie. Um, it keeps so it cuts to Harriet upset over Bogey's death, and like this dinner, right? I feel like you can't ignore that this is the finish of the sentence. Is this scene of Harriet made to her mother that she knew about the cobra and stuff.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's like a contrast that like if the world were made of children, it'd be beautiful, but they're also kind of silly, I guess, and like emotional and irrational and all that. I don't know.
Yeah, and just I think also that there'd be no parents, right? And as necessary to the children, I'm just kind of piecing together myself right now. As necessary, every child must, by obviously like biological necessity, have parents, right? And they're equally necessary to like a child living their best life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I see what you're saying.
I think you can view it that way too. Like if, and that's why we get like the scene ends like the parents crying, right? Um, and of course Harry being upset too because without parents, what are they?
Very true. I think you can kind of say that, but the only problem is that I don't feel like it's really ever reinforced like anywhere else in the movie. Like, it doesn't really talk about like it doesn't thematically feel like adulthood is ever like praised. There's like a cycle of life type stuff, but
I don't think it's praise, but I
Sure,
think
but
that's kind of like I don't know.
it's not
Yeah,
admonished.
I was gonna say
Oh,
like
you're
pretty
gonna
much
interject.
exactly that.
yeah, yeah,
I think adulthood it's just the state of not right. Like childhood, I think this is not this is like more about the pros and cons of childhood, right, than
Mm-hmm.
anything. You
No,
know,
yeah. That's true.
and I think almost the beauty of adulthood is that you can look back at childhood, right? And there's a beauty in that as well, which we're seeing in this movie. And maybe the true happiness comes upon that reflection. You know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's just look at my notes real quick, making sure that. I just took- Yeah, I think it's definitely a whole discussion you could have about like innocence in this global sense, right? Of like post World War II movie
yeah, I mean they do
elements.
have literally the World War II veteran with with two of them.
Veteran, yeah,
One
exactly.
like uh, specifically Captain John being like the central one, so him being like in the midst of this, I think is very intentional.
And then you have that discussion between Captain John and Melanie where they're talking about like he goes like I rebelled and she's like that's what I thought too, buddy, but no,
Yeah,
Nuke World. I mean she doesn't say Heat World,
yeah,
she says the Sheik World, but
That's such a great line. Oh my god.
leading them for the Heat World as well. Or he, and I think there's a thing about that, right? Where like everyone wants to think that they're rebelling and they're doing something for the better, but really they're just fighting for no reason. You know, like, at the end of the day, they're just fighting to fight, not for anything. In a lot of ways, there really isn't anything to fight for. Like, really, life is just too beautiful to like actually come up with reasons to fight. So we have to like find them. You know.
hmm. Maybe that's why. I think in
Which
this.
okay, I also want to say is like definitely not a view that a lot of directors could do, and I think we do have to acknowledge that there's definitely some privilege behind like that kind of sentiment by John Renoir as well. I love John Renoir, but I don't think like a feminist filmmaker could be saying that there's nothing to rebel for. You know?
Yeah,
Anyways,
I was gonna say,
what do you say, Derek?
Mr. John and Captain John have like also talk on like war, and I forget which part, but it was interesting because it was kind of like I think it was like the only time they talk about adulthood, or the first time at least, in like very explicit details. It's kind of like Mr. John's like we ship our children off in to fight in our meaningless wars and stuff, to fight for us and carry our dead and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So it's kind of like and that's like it's specific.
I think it's the same scene as we were talking about earlier with where he gets cut off
Yeah,
and
so
stuff.
it's
Yeah,
kind of like
continue.
it's very interesting that he says we ship our children off to war. So it's kind of like it's like again like that comment you're talking about innocence in war. So it's like they go to
Yes.
war innocent as children and they do not come back from war as children.
And I think it's also this kind of statement that like if we could just be with each other, you know what I mean? And like not try to find these lines and not try to quarrel, but like actually just enjoy time together, like this kind of stuff wouldn't happen.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? We wouldn't have to ship children off to war and stuff. We can't. We can't just enjoy. We always have to fight. And you know, as terrible as it is, why did Bogey die? Because of everyone fighting around him and not paying attention.
That's actually yeah, that's
Because
actually a
they
good
heard
point.
it,
Yeah.
you know. And something else really cool I just realized I was going through my notes and like as you know, putting together what we were talking about. In terms of the whole like the beauty of life is its reflection,
Mhm.
right? This is actually mirrored to the structure of the film, where basically the film starts with, like you get like a couple minutes exposition of like them looking at the river and then like the dad walking through. Pretty much you get this shot or this like this it's like narration over like what's like more or less like a montage of like every single character in the film, right? Except for Captain John. Obviously, like we get like this is my sister, this is my brother, these are the twins, this is mom, this is Valerie, etc. And this is actually mirrored right after or right before Boki's death,
Mhm.
right? We see everyone sleeping again, and it's like I don't know if it's the same order. I'd have to check, but it's like it's everyone. It's cuts to every single character just like sleeping basically, or like I guess in Harriet's case she wasn't actually sleeping, which you know it's a whole
I
other simplest
I think that might
thing.
actually
But
be yeah, I think it's probably in the same order because this might again probably cheating, but what the document said is that he spent like hours just like on two kids like sleeping in a cot, like just getting the position correct. So I imagine he probably did it in the same order.
yeah, if so, that's like I think it's like so if you want to say this is childhood, right? It's like if you want to say like um I like to think that like everyone sleeping kind of like represents like not death, but like at least like something like death. You know, like the
Uh
end of
huh.
adulthood, right? And the rest represents the beginning of adulthood, right? Because this film is just transition into adulthood, right? I think what's kind of trying to say is like there's this time after the end of adulthood, right? Because like after we see everyone sleeping, we still have like 25 more minutes of the movie, right? So it should be a parallelism, isn't because in life there's not a parallelism. It's not equally way between childhood and adulthood. First thing, adulthood is the longer part of life, which like is like this kind of cruelty and irony in that. But also more importantly, like it also allows for time for reflection, right? Where characters can look back and think and understand, especially after these sort of tragic events, and we can kind of reminisce on this simpler time, right? And I think that's what you know goes back to that other theory. Like I think adulthood, one beauty is just the reminiscence. You know, I think like kind of structuring it so that there's this it's weighted more towards the adulthood side is like important in noting that. Okay. Quotes time?
Quotes time.
Okay. Um let's each go with our favorite quote first and then we can just do other cool quotes.
Quotes.
Who wants to
Are we
start?
doing favorite quotes overall?
Yes. Although I don't know what your possibly your favorite quote from Chien
Obviously, it's
Andalou could be.
the title or title quote. But yeah, no. My favorite is when I think I think it's actually in the same talk of the children when he's talking about like shipping children off to war, Mr. John. He says, I think way before then, he says two men stood on the middle of the Golden Gate Bridge. One jumped off, quietly swam home. The
No, that was
Oh, okay,
before.
that was
That was
before. Okay,
before.
the other
So,
didn't jump and dropped dead.
oh, yeah, I think that was when he's talking to the
No, he's
father.
talking
Then maybe.
to it's yeah, it's he's talking
Mr.
to
John.
Captain John. He's like it's when Captain John's like walking around and he's like I'm bored and I'm not really good with his spiritual stuff and he Mr. John's like I'm not really a meditator either. So but and then he talks about this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. No, not. I think.
Yeah,
Are you sure it wasn't the dad,
I'm
dude?
like
Because the dad would be the one that's not the
yeah,
meditator.
no,
Because John
Captain
is a big
John.
meditator.
I'm saying Captain John and then Mr. John says, "Yeah, I'm not very good at meditating either." Uh,
He's
no.
good at meditating, isn't he? Is that the whole
No,
point?
I remember he specifically said that. That's what he opens with. That's like his first line with Captain John in that scene.
Okay, I trust you. Caleb, favorite quote.
It's when Harriet says, "I didn't know it hurt to grow," because it really captures the
Oh
thematic
yeah.
point of this movie.
Um, gosh, my favorite quote. This is a hard question that I really should have like come up with a good answer to before this very moment. I mean, I think I kind of talked about a couple of them. I really liked when Valerie was like, I didn't want to change, but it changed. I didn't want it to leave, but it's gone.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that was like, yeah, obviously a great one. And then there's another one. First, I didn't write down the full one, the full quote though. But it's right after Harriet reads her story,
Mm.
and what Valerie says is, "It isn't the end. It's endless. It begins all over again with a new baby." And then there's like a little dialogue there, and or maybe it's like before, but anyways, at some point Valerie said, or Captain John says, "I thought you said it was about Christian. It's about a little girl." And Valerie has like a response like, um, oh gosh, never mind. Ignore what I'm saying. But I like that. This is dialogue there that I like. Also, just that whole story was so good as like a monologue.
Mhm. It was very good.
Okay, other cool quotes. You guys want to, Derek? How many did you write down? Are you
Um,
participate in this
pretty
roundtable?
much one, but I already mentioned the one I liked a lot, as well. Another Mr. John. He's talking to Captain John again, and he says, "We ship our children off to war." I don't have the full quote, but he says a lot before then, and I like this part before then.
Caleb, cool quote.
I think I already talked about all mine. Let's see if maybe I have one more. The one where Melanie says, "It is not you I dislike, it is myself." That was pretty interesting, and we kind of get to see like a side of her personality that we'd never really seen before.
Or Melanie. Another cool quote is when you. This is from the mom. She says, "When you look at them, the most surprising people are beautiful."
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, that was good.
Um, I love this quote. Suddenly, we're running away from childhood, rushing toward love. Which I love this juxtaposition between childhood and love, which is one thing we didn't really talk about. How like love is like almost the antithesis of childhood because love is all about like this like really adult emotion, like it's like so arbitrary and like meaningless, and kind of captures that sense more than anything. Um, Also like in follow up to the whole like I didn't want to leave, but it's gone. When she like ends that scene with I didn't want to be real. Woo! And I already said, um, we should celebrate a child died a child is a bit of a dark quote, but one I could fuck with. And then in my case, it was not a quarrel, it was a rebellion. It's so good. And also the
Mhm.
response there. And then also like every little thing we do is, oh, we either die or are reborn, which was a Captain John quote. Those are all of them. By the way, I just want to point one more thing about this movie. This movie could also be like dark as hell, or at least like significantly more dramatic than it actually
That's
is.
the
You know
thing.
what I
It's like a
mean?
very interesting balance between like I want to just say light and dark, because it's like it would be it's there's some real brutality, like the shot of like Captain John hurting himself, and like it is actually like upsetting. And when you obviously when you see Bogey's body, that's like actually brutal.
Mhm.
So it's kind of this movie has some very brutal moments, and
And just the treatment of Harriet
hmm
throughout as well, right? Like it's so cruel what like these two adults are doing to her, right? But I think the point is like adult Harriet's like, that's just life though, you know. Life is life. Um, yeah. Okay. Favorite scene?
overall, um,
Yes.
oh
Can I go with all of Unshin and Tohai? Does that
yeah,
count
I
as
was
one
about to,
scene?
I guess I'll pick a specific one. I liked a lot. I already talked about it, but the Death Head Moth, like Hawk Moth, because it was just like so much interesting meaning in like one little thing, and if he does, and the shot itself is
Sure.
very interesting because he like closes up, gets a really good close up, and then he like kind of backs up and it kind of fades and gets very dreamy, and it's and then it like shifts to the dude, and like the dude's like mouth is going away. It's just like it's just very freaky. I liked it a lot.
Caleb.
I liked. I don't know if it was the final scene of the river, but it was pretty dang close. When it just kind of has like the shot of like that red tree and like all of the different.
You would like that.
Wait, would I like it?
Wait, you said the red what?
Yeah, the red tree, and like kind of just like
Oh, never
had
mind.
all the
Never mind.
shots of oh, like the like all the different like leaves and twigs on the very
Sure.
end. Oof, it's like so much red. And it was also like the festival. They were like rubbing their tail at everybody. So beautiful.
I really like the story. Just like it's so beautiful, and also like paired with like how cruel it is that like this happens multiple times where Captain John like doesn't see the beauty here, right? And you can maybe even argue it's the war, or you can argue it's like his Western side, like kind of prevents him from seeing the beauty. This also happens when she's reading the
hmm
poem to him, and it just like completely goes over his head. But and the story is just so great. It's just so beautifully told. It's so much like great tradition, like makes like an actual story. And then also there's this cool little things like it's also, as Derek would say, pretty efficient, and like you have things like like you can tell how extravagant the wedding is because they do this like this cool synecdoche where like it's like this, I don't know if you guys remember, it's like a chalk drawing on the
Yep.
ground, and like all they have to do is like, and I show them chalk drawing, it's nice and small, and it's like, and the wedding was huge, and you just like see them like continue drawing, and like it cuts to like the chalk drawing being gigantic now. Like it's all you need, stuff like that, like to make the superfluous stuff like um skip by, and then we can get like real quality time on like the dancing and this beauty and this relationship between the two,
Oh
which is
my
like
god, I
amazing.
forgot about the dance. Can I make that my second favorite? The the shot of her
Oh, go
dancing
for it.
of obviously it's Melly, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting how he shot that. Like, instead of the camera moving, he has her move towards the camera. So or even instead of zooming, so while she's dancing and she's moving in spatially, like both forward and back and side to side, and it's just like so interesting how it's like the timing of it, and like oh my god, I just love it, and the fact that he does chooses not to zoom at all, at all, just like leaves it up to her, and like I bet that was like terrible to direct to get exactly what he wanted, but it was something special for me.
Okay. Favorite character.
Mr. John.
That's a good one. Caleb.
Um, I'd say Captain John. We get to see a lot of sides of.
Whoa, he's the worst.
How?
Dude,
How
he
is
kind of
Captain
like
John the
gets with the kid, completely an asshole to Harriet. He has some like redeemable qualities too. Like he's sympathetic, but he's also like not exactly a good person.
Well, no, this wasn't best person award. It's best character, and he's best character partially because of those facets where he is, or at least thoughtless. And we also get to see him being thoughtful and like really confused and trying to figure stuff out. Get to see more sides of him than we get to see of most characters. So, for that reason,
Um, I might go with Nan. I don't know. She's just so
Yeah.
fun. Like she gets so like invested in this like petty ass drama. She has such a weird lines. Like she kind of like really just this weird spot. Like I think she's in a lot of ways, and that's why like, Harriet points her out last because she's kind of what Harriet strives to be as someone who can just like really relish childhood in this way that like no one else quite does, other than like
Mhm.
arguably Mr. John. Also, though,
Obviously, Victoria.
I do, I do really like Victoria's amazing,
Yeah.
and Melanie.
Yeah.
I think Melanie is really great character as well. Although apparently, yeah, it's just crazy. Like this is not a star-studded cast in the slightest. Best performance. I think this is gonna be an interesting question.
Uh, I'm gonna.
Like, if this is quest for the best performance, whew, there'd be a heated
I'm
discussion
gonna.
here.
This might be controversial. It might not be, but the
Okay.
woman in Chien, Andalou.
I was gonna go with the guy. So, yeah, I mean, I could see both sides of it, right? Like, they have different reactions. Like, obviously, like, hers is just crazy because like the horror she's
Yeah.
portray and stuff like that. His is he has some weird ass emotions like with like
Yeah,
the
and also,
lust and stuff.
yeah, I was thinking
But they're
about him
both
because
great.
he has that one. It always sticks with me when he's looking down on the street from the window at the woman dead.
Yes.
That shot through the window just like sticks in my head.
Oh. Like so weirdly happy. He's a guy who's upset and just like yes. Oh gosh, Caleb.
I'll say Harriet.
Yeah, that's
She
the other one.
has to portray like a lot of different emotions, and she's on screen a lot, and does a good job of being like a really melodramatic teenager, but making it come off as authentic.
I'm glad we hit the three people that should hit on. Although I will say also the fourth one. I think it's like those three are kind of like in the top tier, and then we have like in a tier of our own. I think is Valerie, maybe like Mr. John, I guess, but like where she's clearly better than everyone else, but like
Yeah,
also like
she's like
really worse in the top three. But I think Valerie
Yeah.
also does a very good job. Okay. Caleb, we're gonna start with you. Which movie do you like better?
We didn't do step up, step down.
Oh, good, Caleb. This is what I pay you the big bucks for. You know what I mean? Okay. Well, first
I
thing,
agree.
which movie do you like better, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois or The Exterminating Angel? You're
Discreet Charm was definitely step up. I like Discreet Charm a lot. Like a lot.
I like Exterminating Angel better, but I
I
feel
like
both.
I like this charm more.
Okay, so for Caleb and Derek, was this a step up or step down from Discreet Charm?
Definitely step up.
Step up.
Step up as well. Yeah, I think it's a hard argument. Okay. And then is the river a step up or a step down from the French can? Whew.
Oh,
This is a
Yeah,
toughie.
it's definitely tough. I'm gonna say step up. I think I like
I'm
the
also gonna go
themes of
step
this.
up, yeah.
I think they're very interesting. And this is such an interesting like coming of age story. I would say it's step up.
Here's what I'll say is what the French can did really well with like all the characters and like all of like the color and stuff. Not like all of like the music and stuff. I think the French can did that
Mhm.
better, right? And so sure that those elements are worse in this movie, but then this movie does everything, so many more things besides just that, right?
Yeah.
I actually
Alright,
concur completely. That's like exactly my opinion.
so I'm gonna go step up. And you also want to step up, Caleb, I assume?
Yeah, exactly for that same. Like I thought the colors and like the choreography of the dance were like incredible in French Can Can, and like definitely above anything that the river did. But the river did like more things and did them all extremely consistently well. So
Just John
river,
Lamar in general is so good at dealing with ensemble casts. Like,
he's real good.
obviously, he's quite the talented director. We'll get to this with like rules of the game, but just like I don't think it can be easy to deal with this many people. Like, I love Ingrid Bergman, but I think there's definitely something a bit simpler just having like two people, right, that you're just like directing. Which Bergman's kind of like known for two-person kind of movie, but like Renoir has like so many that killed. You said they are always interacting in both the movies we've watched. I think that's like something like definitely like positive to point out. Okay, Caleb, which one are you voting for?
The river, it
Caleb
was
votes for
really
the
good.
river.
Yeah, I thought the other movie was really really good, but it was a little bit wankery. Um, Also, like the river just is like so beautiful. Like everything about it was beautiful. Did so many things and did them all extremely well. You get like cultural stuff, good love story, coming of
Andalou
age.
was like
Oof,
beautiful in like a
stuff.
horror way though.
And a little. Okay. Um. Yeah, it is definitely beautiful, like in this different way, right? Like in what he's trying to experiment with. Derek, what's your stance? Which one are you going
I
for?
I still don't know, but I'm gonna go with my heart, what my gut says. It's really close though.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say Unshin and Alu.
Oh no. Uh, this is really hard. Really liked both of these movies a lot. Oh man. Um. Gosh, it's so hard because like I feel like this movie is more similar to the French Can obviously than Un Chien Andalou is to either the Exterminating Angel or the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois. I think his Exterminating Angel and the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois definitely have like their similarities, right? So it's not like fair to say that like a two movie sample size is like enough to judge somebody that like stuff like that, which I think is like usually used for tiebreakers. Um, I am going to go up because I think sorry, I'm gonna go the river because I just think and like I'm sorry Derek to disagree with you like 10 billion those in a row, but like I was really torn here. I hope you like
Oh
understand that
yeah,
like
this was probably the first podcast that I didn't have like at least a lean on which one I liked more. This one was actually hard for me as well, so I can understand.
yeah. And I think it's like that's honestly partially why I'm going this because Caleb seems to be like slightly in the river and we're both kind of even it seems, but like I just feel that when it comes to direction, first thing we're not talking about Ali, which is like fair to criticize, but it's true, right? But also secondly, like I think I have read the book The River, which this is based off of, but just like the direction in this movie is still so strong despite the narrative, right? Like I'm not saying the narrative is good. Don't get me wrong. Like the dialogue, I assume, is the same in some of the same in both the book and the movie, and that's really strong too. But I just feel like Renoir is such a bold thing with the direction of this movie, right? That could totally just like not work, right? That could totally be distasteful. He does it so well and so perfectly that it works out for him. And I thought I'm gonna give it to the river, but it is
I
so
mean,
close.
don't you know Wow does bold things? Is all bold.
Oh yeah, no, it is super bold. I just mean that. Gosh, Dirk. I mean, they're both really bold. Okay, my point is the river's bold while being traditional narrative. You know what I mean? Well, Unshin and Lu, yes, it is bold, but also the genre it is in, if you can call it a genre, is a genre that lends itself to
Mm.
emboldenment.
Wait, I just
Once again,
like looking at Wikipedia. Do you guys realize that Jean Renoir, the director of the movie, is the like grandson of
Yeah,
Renoir,
that's
the
why
famous
he
painter?
has like such
yeah,
expressionist like colors and stuff. That's why he's known for that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
and why he's really good. Like, yeah, no, yeah, I did know that, Caleb. Oh gosh, I love both of these directors, and like, I actually we could sing the praise of both of these movies. I think this is the best round we've ever had
Yeah.
in this
These are
podcast.
These are definitely the
I
closest to.
and even that like they're closest, but it's not like they're close in terms of like I'm trying to think of like two movies that we had that were like very like meh sort of close.
Stromboli and Godfather Part 3.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely it's definitely an example. Or even like Notorious for the Dams. I think is like another one, right? Like these are like the Notorious is really good. It's like not quite fair. I don't know. We've watched a lot of good movies. Sacrifice, Day of Wrath, stuff like that. Like we've had a lot of rounds where like, they're close like a master but this is like close. Like these are like argue like top 5 movies that we've watched, top 10
Oh
movies
yeah,
we've
these
watched
are
for the
definitely in
podcast
my
so
top
far.
10.
Yeah. So it's just so exciting. Halfway through the fourth or the second, over halfway through the second round, we have 3 more left for the second
Yeah, I
round, guys.
have
Can you
these
believe it?
two 7 and 8 on my list.
That's
So
insane.
these are my 7 and 8 spots.
That's crazy. So River moves on, or John War moves on, and with it, by the way, I can actually tell you who we'll be going up against. Or actually, do we want to do this like in a bracket sort of thing, or do we want to continue re-ranking them after every round and then do
That's
seeding that
fun.
way?
Yeah, that's fun.
Okay. Um. So yeah, so John War's next movie is going to be Party. Well, this will be an interesting discussion. Party de Campagne, which is actually, I believe, an incomplete movie.
Hmm.
I'm going to double check this, but if this is the movie that I think it is, yeah, I'm like 90% sure this is unfinished. Yeah, it never finished when we due to weather problems. They turned it in 1946, 10 years after it was shot. So it'll be this whole own kind of thing. By the way, other movies we'll be watching in the second round include I should have like prepared this part. Also, we're watching Stalker, which I think is like super exciting. Partially because I own it, and I
Wait, Stalker is not in the second round. We already did Tarkovsky.
third round. Sorry, third round.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh, this is
Got it.
based on Guy de Passant. Passant. Oh,
On
yeah,
the
yeah.
Party de
This is
Campagne.
from his short story. Oh, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I did have some. And then we're gonna have the last laugh, which I'm super duper excited to talk about. And then crimes and misdemeanors, not quite as hard hitting as the other 3 that we named, but and then we're also gonna have the winner, another set we're gonna have either Ozu's An Autumn Afternoon, or we're gonna have Truffaut's Shoot the Piano Player, but we won't find out which one until our next round when we'll be watching I Was Born But versus Day for Night.
Sounds lit.
Yeah. Okay. Until then, I'm Matthew Moore on behalf of my co-host, Caleb Trzynski. Caleb Ferguson and Derek Trzynski, not Caleb Trzynski.
Not yet, at least.
Have a nice night.